Mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the show. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking with a contractor who went down to Florida to try to help out, help people out with getting roof repairs and whatever other issues, clean outs, clean up the yard, clean up fallen tree branches, that kind of stuff. The things that are necessary after a devastating hurricane has passed through an area. He's been down in Fort Myers now for, I think, a couple of weeks. We've still got him on the line with us. It's Ian, Aria, and Conan here tonight. We'll get into some of the other news about Mark Hamill being hired by Disney, coming up here for doing propaganda work in favor of Ukraine. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. But first, we're back to Joe in Fort Myers, Florida. Joe, when did you get down there? Was it more than a week ago?
Yeah, it was about 8 days ago now.
Okay.
And it definitely took a couple of days of driving around just to understand the scope of the situation. It's a pretty big area here, not very populated compared to a lot of where other hurricanes have hit. But the damage numbers just didn't make sense until this mold situation. This is what I figured out. And that is just a huge shame because, like I said, I've seen it be taken care of before. You know, all those volunteers in Canada got in and they made sure the whole city pretty much had everything sealed up so it wasn't leaking and stuff out that was wet so it wasn't molding. You know, people could still keep their pictures of their families and stuff like that.
Let me see if I can understand what you're saying here, though. You were in Canada. You said there was a river that flowed over in Calgary, I think it was, and there was a tremendous response from people there. You said the licensing wasn't an issue because people were volunteering. So are you saying that if someone was trying to charge for services in Canada, they probably would have been cracked down on too, like in Florida? That's what's happening there.
No, we did that, and it was completely waived. Even when we would have encounters with the police and stuff like that, it was completely obvious that we were unlicensed, and they welcomed us in.
Wow.
And it was a huge party while we were there. Everybody was going around handing out free beer and liquor to everybody, and it was just it was a crazy thing. Just watching drunk Canadians get it all done, you know.
Damn.
And yeah.
So there you go, Aria. I guess some people are still somewhat decent while they're in government. You just have to go to Canada to find them.
I'm not terribly surprised to hear that. I mean, Canada's got that more neighborly
They've
feel
got a reputation for being nice people.
Yeah, until they start dealing with COVID. And they're locking their whole country down.
It got really ugly there.
Really ugly.
I mean, no one's perfect, right? But I would expect in a disaster that Canada would be one of the countries that would be more likely to waive these regulations and requirements than other nations.
Well, at least until COVID, as Conan pointed out. So, Joe, you told us last week that you had hired an attorney. You're trying to make your way through the government paperwork because you did go all the way down there. You do want to help, so you just don't want to end up in a prison cell with apparently a felony charge. So this is like pretty serious business here. Insane. And felony charge for just fixing somebody's house without asking government permission first. So you're trying to jump through the hoops. What's the status on that?
Well, while we were trying to jump through the hoops, I tried to shift over into a little bit of a charity operation, and I ran into the same felony charges. So it was the same thing as far as if you start soliciting, you know, I wasn't sure about the GoFundMes and stuff. So all the effort for the legal effort had to be put in for the business side of things. And we did find out that it wasn't as bad. You can do up to like $2,500 of certain types of work without a license here. So I have gotten started on some small fence repair. I'm also not doing charity, but there are some people here who FEMA, they don't fall into their programs, and you know their dwellings are leaking and they're having mold issues. And I am able to do that. It's not through charity. I don't have anything like that because that could be a felony, but I will say that Porcupine Coffee Roasting is doing really great things, and I would hope that people would buy some coffee there. And you know, it's just going it's not going directly to making sure people have a place to sleep that's not moldy and rainy at night here in Florida. So we are doing what we can on the contractor side of things.
But what's the status on the paperwork? Like how's the hoop jumping going? How long is this going to take?
Well, if we partner with local contractors that get their percentage, then it can go a lot faster. And then other than that, it's really just up to how fast the bureaucrats want to move. Nobody really knows.
I was going to ask about that because it seems like that would be the most expedient, if not necessarily the most profitable and the most comfortable decision to, you know, work as a subcontractor for some of the other contracting companies there. I wouldn't want to do that if I was still a contractor, because that was the whole point of being a contractor for me.
It would at least get you working.
Yeah, we're still doing it. We're still going down that road. I'm doing my work right now, which is the smaller stuff. We're partnering up with the bigger guys. And then we're also trying to recruit from states that have reciprocity with their contractor licenses, and we're exploring angles like that. But, while all this is happening, all these houses are sitting there with mold, and there's day laborers standing around everywhere. There's day labor without jobs and without picking them up, and people are losing everything here. You see it all over the place, and it is absolutely maddening to know that a solution is right there. It's just
the solution's the market, but it's not. The market would handle this, but it's not free to because, who wants to go to prison for fixing somebody's roof? It's just not worth it.
Well,
when you got snitches everywhere.
We would help less people. We would help less people. We have to go about this in a way to where we can help the most people, and that's just the way it has to work for this. I know that there's other approaches, but it just can't take those kind of risks right now.
President DeSantis, he's in our chat room right now. He mentions that Florida might be the most strict in the country for unlicensed contractors.
Really?
Which is odd.
The free state.
The free state.
Florida.
The state where everyone, they're either going to Texas or they're going to Florida because good old DeSantis. Get out of our chat room, man.
Hey, thank you, Joe, for the update tonight, and feel free to call us back anytime you got developments you want to share.
Yeah, will do. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. Wow.
What a mess, man. It reminds me of what, happened in Mississippi and Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina. I checked it because this made me curious about it. And both of those states do also require a contractor's license, but I don't remember hearing stories about this in regard to Katrina. So maybe Katrina was just
happened.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. And just because it's happening there doesn't mean it's going to make national headlines.
Right. No, I'm just saying, I was curious if this has happened elsewhere in regard to other disasters, and I couldn't find any examples of it.
Yeah, this whole mythology around Florida being this free state and this option for people who care about liberty to move down there. Look, if you're a conservative, you're going to love Florida. Get on down there. Have fun with that. If you are a libertarian, you really need to look at the place where the libertarians are moving, which is New Hampshire. Now, for every libertarian who fell under the spell of this tyrant, DeSantis down there, because, he was good on masks.
Oh, okay. Well, gee.
And, and lockdowns. It was only a couple of months there, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's the thing. He wasn't good, and then he realized it would be good for him politically to get good on that issue, and he flipped like a lot of politicians do.
Yeah, he flipped right after, I can't remember her name, the other governor who didn't lock anything down.
Nome. Christy Nome.
And I think because DeSantis lifted his restrictions like a week later because she was getting all kinds of praise. Everyone's
see, monkey do.
Yeah. But but the argument for licensure, especially in places like Florida where it's full of old people, is that these unlicensed contractors are ripping off people. And it's true. But buyer beware. This is how it works.
A licensed person will rip somebody off too. That happens all the time. The idea that a license isn't going to, or that somebody being licensed is somehow going to prevent them from being dishonest is ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's the same argument they use here in our state, New Hampshire, with the vehicle inspection nonsense. They're like, well, if we don't get the vehicles inspected, your bumper's going to fly off and kill some old lady. That's their argument every single time.
There are plenty of states where there are no mandatory inspections and everything's okay. More coming up here in moments. You can join the show at 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you a sneezer? If you're not, can you get close to one? I don't literally mean someone sneezing. Sneezer, as defined by marketing guru Seth Godin, is an opinion leader. When a sneezer mentions something, other people catch what Godin calls the idea virus. Seth Godin says some people are more likely to tell their friends about a great new idea. So identifying and courting sneezers is a key success factor for idea merchants. His book, Unleashing the Idea Virus, is the most downloaded ebook in history, and you can download the whole book free. That's how he's making his idea contagious. Click tips, tricks, and other stuff to help you cut through the clutter at www.survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The leaders of 7 major industrialised countries have announced they'll continue supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. The G7 also said Russia would face severe consequences if it used chemical, biological or nuclear weapons. Russian missiles have struck a number of Ukrainian cities this week, killing at least 19 people, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the G7 at a virtual emergency meeting to boost the country's air defence capabilities. Meanwhile, the head of GCHQ, one of the UK's intelligence agencies, says Ukrainian forces are turning the tide in their fight against Russia. Our UK correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
Britain's top spies don't speak in public very often, and when they do, the world listens. In his speech on Tuesday, Sir Jeremy Fleming condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin for his veiled threats about nuclear weapons.
To even be talking about possible use of tactical nuclear weapons is a very dangerous thing to do. And if there really is contemplation about their use, then that would be catastrophic, and there would be serious repercussions from that.
Fleming also said that China's government fears freedom of speech and its own citizens, saying that its actions could represent a huge threat to us all. Extracts of his speech were released ahead of time, and Beijing said the claims had no basis in fact. Giles Gibson, London.
The International Monetary Fund has unveiled its World Economic Outlook for the year ahead, with a stark warning that the worst is yet to come. The IMF, holding its annual meeting in Washington, D.C., says the global economy faces steep challenges, shaped by 3 powerful forces: the war in Ukraine, inflation, and a deceleration of growth in China. The coronation of King Charles III will take place on May 6th next year. Buckingham Palace confirmed the ceremony will take place in Westminster Abbey, with Camilla, the Queen Consort, set to be crowned alongside her husband. Laura Macon-Isherwood reports from London.
The palace says the proceedings, which will take place 8 months after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, will reflect the monarch's role today and look towards the future. It's expected to be a slimmed-down version of the events King Charles's mother experienced, and there may be far fewer guests in attendance too. May the 6th is also the birthday of Prince Harry and Meghan the Duchess of Sussex's son, Archie. It's not clear yet if the family will travel from California to attend. Laura Macon-Isherwood, London.
And the US Treasury Secretary has urged G20 members to do more to help millions of people facing food insecurity. At an inaugural meeting between G20 finance and agricultural ministers, Janet Yellen said Russia's war in Ukraine is the cause of immense human suffering. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here, and you can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. Bring up whatever you want. We started out the show with a contractor who called in from Fort Myers, Florida, where he's just been surveying the devastation down there because he can't do much more than survey it. He doesn't have a Florida contractor's license, and that means that if he tries to repair someone's home, tries to help somebody out, he could be facing a felony charge if, say, a licensed contractor happens to come by and spies his truck sitting in a driveway, which, of course, it's from New Hampshire, so obviously it's not there in Florida, and it's going to have a New Hampshire plate on it. It's going to be from out of town. And then he calls it in, and the cops show up, and then you go to prison. So he was dealing with that situation.
Insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And it kind of led to a conversation about the so-called free state of Florida. There's all this propaganda around. By the way, Ian, Aria, and Conan in the studio here tonight. All this propaganda pushing Florida as this destination for people that care about liberty, and I don't buy it. And I say that as somebody who spent the first 26 years of his life down in Florida. But I do want to tell you about Bitcoin.com, because cryptocurrency can help the individual protect themselves from the ravages of government inflation. At least that's what I believe about it. The tendency towards cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash is to have gone up over time. Now, there's no doubt it's down compared to where it was in 2021. It hit a record high. I was actually just looking at some old footage of the show. We were talking about it in October of last year, hitting a record high of like $68,000, and now it's floating at around $19,000 to $20,000 today. So it's definitely down compared to last year, but it's still up compared to 3 years ago. So over time, I think it is trending upward, whereas the U.S. dollar and other fiat currencies are guaranteed to lose value, and they will not go up in value because that's how they're designed.
Bitcoin is up like 60-70% from 2 years ago. So it's just a matter of how long of a time frame you look at it.
Yeah, you gotta zoom out when it comes to looking at cryptocurrency prices. Anyway, go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started at the top of the page. You'll find some interesting information there that'll get you the basics about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, so you can get started in the world of cryptocurrency. You can also, if you're not brand new, get the latest news headlines anytime and deep coverage over at news.bitcoin.com. That's news.bitcoin.com. As we continue here, so this whole free state of Florida thing, Conan, you lived down there for a time as well.
20-something years.
Yeah, me too. And
from what I can tell, Florida is attractive to the conservative types, the anti-woke crowd that tend to be more conservative than libertarian. They probably have some libertarian tendencies, some libertarian leanings, as some conservatives do, and so do some liberals. Everyone has some tendency toward freedom, but I don't know of too many actual libertarians that are looking at Florida looking like, yes, that is the place for me. I mean, it's just the one issue.
I've seen too many of them. I've seen on social media too many libertarians getting snookered by this whole Florida pitch and actually picking up their lives and moving to Florida. I've seen it happen in the last couple of years after the whole COVID crackdown thing. And maybe it's because they're sunshine activists.
That helps. Vitamin D.
They don't like being cold or whatever, and they're looking for some other option.
The weirdest part about this is that growing up, I knew so many snowbirds, so many Northerners who go down there and live there 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
New England liberals.
A lot of big government people.
And it's just, so this whole idea that Florida is a conservative state, it's a purple state, right?
The Republicans haven't been in charge for a long time. In fact, the Democrats were running things for a while there. And so, yeah, it does kind of flip-flop.
And they do have some big cities. And by the way, if you really want to get liberal, Key West is where you go. Mm-hmm. But Miami, huge. Jacksonville, Tampa. I mean, these are big cities with a lot of people. And usually those types of environments will attract, the liberal types.
I was on some conversation with people about Florida on social media the other day, and some guy with a Gators icon, which is one of the football teams down there, comes onto the thread, and he admitted that there just aren't enough libertarians down there to make any kind of difference.
Okay, so why bother? Why would a libertarian bother then? If you're going to move somewhere for activism, why would you move somewhere where you're not going to have any impact?
I don't know if these people moved there for activism. I think they just moved there because they perceived that it would be an increase in freedom. And maybe it was. If you moved from California to Florida, you probably are seeing an increase in freedom.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But if you actually want to see freedom increasing over time, because, states are a race to the bottom, right? Just like crypto or just like fiat currencies are a race to the bottom as far as value is concerned, states are a race to bottom as far as freedom is concerned. States are constantly growing. These bureaucrats always want more control. They want bigger bureaucracies. They want more budgets. They want more laws to enforce.
And states can only increase in size at the expense of liberty.
Correct. And so Florida's going in that direction, just like Texas, just like California. Maybe they've gone at a slightly slower pace over the years, and that's why they're the number 2 freest state, according to the Cato Institute Freedom in the 50 States study. But the difference between Florida and New Hampshire is significant from an activism perspective. The libertarians in Florida, as I mentioned earlier tonight, can't barely even get on the ballot still. It's still a struggle.
Not to mention population. Florida is 22 million at the moment.
That's the most important part.
And we are 1.3.
Yeah.
Just a fraction.
There's also a huge difference culturally. I mean, the South, for better or worse, it's overwhelmed by Christianity.
There's a lot of that.
And it permeates their government and at all levels, and it causes their government to not be unlike a theocracy in many, many ways.
That's another good point. But the biggest takeaway is the population, because an activist that moves to New Hampshire basically has 10 times, 20 times the effect because of the population. Mm-hmm. If you influence 10 people here to vote libertarian or to do libertarian things or whatever to support liberty. And by the way, the native population here is much more supportive of liberty because it is the live free or die state. That to some extent is kind of baked into the granite staters here. So you're actually starting from a better base of people that are more likely to understand these ideas just because that's the way they were raised.
And they take pride in that.
Yeah, they were raised in a very kind of leave me aloneist attitude up here. So they really do understand a lot more than I think a lot of people in other states. So you got a better starting point. You've got a more free place already. You've got the smaller population, so you have more of an effect. And you've got a track record of success here. You're not just wandering in under some Republican dictator who loves the police but turned good on masks, and that's really all you've got down there in Florida. You're coming into, if you move to New Hampshire as part of, say, the Free State Project, or you just come here and you're, a liberty-minded person who wants to get active, you're moving to a place where libertarians are actually not quite running things, but if you listen to the Democrats, they think we are. It's not true, but they're acting like the Free Staters have taken over the state.
Certainly influencing things. Though.
Yeah, well, the Free Staters have a huge influence within the Republican Party establishment now. They built that over the last decade and a half, and they've earned it. It was hard, but they got there. There's a Free Stater who's the Republican House Majority Leader. Tell me about anything like that happening in Florida or Texas, for that matter. There's probably about 40 Free Staters that are in the State House, which is about a tenth of the State House.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
And that doesn't include the other New Hampshire native types who are also pro-liberty, so you could add those people in, and you might get to like 100 state representatives that are mostly freedom-friendly. They're wrong on some things, but right more often than not.
But to be fair, New Hampshire does still have that Republican governor who loves police and all of that stuff. I mean, yeah.
But that's the most powerful, position, right? So of course that's going to be the hardest one to change out. And again, the libertarians in Florida, they can't even get a newspaper article. They can't even get into a debate. They can't get any kind of coverage whatsoever because they barely exist. So you can understand why they would be ignored. They have no influence. They have no impact. Here, the leftists and the statists are having regular seminars about the Free State Project, about how evil and bad the Free State Project is and how dangerous the Free Staters are to this precious state.
They have rallies against us.
They literally do. When's that ever happened in Florida for libertarians down there? I'll go ahead and answer that question for you. It never has happened because the libertarians there have no effect, and they never will because the population just won't work.
Free Talk Live.
First of all, the relationship with police is involuntary. I did not contract with them, so it's an involuntary relationship, and they steal my money to pay for their salaries against my will. So anyone who says they're protecting my freedom by doing that job is ignorant or they're lying. And that's how I feel about it. I feel that they're glorified revenue agents. If they're sitting beside the road hiding, waiting for someone to do something Master told them not to do, they pounce out of behind the tree and they go running 70 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone to catch that person who was doing 42 because they were driving unsafe. What does that make them? That just really irritates me. And they're when they show up to a scene or they pull you over on the side of the road, they're looking for someone to charge with something so that they can make more revenue for the state. They're glorified revenue agents.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means, stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up anything that you want to discuss. And I want to say thanks to James Hellerman, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program. James joined over at amps.freetalklive.com. He's doing gold level, which means he's doing twice what we ask. We only ask for $5 a month to help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live, to help us get on new good radio stations, to get the word out about the ideas of freedom and liberty. So if you value what we do here, you like us talking about peace, for instance, and cryptocurrency, then please help us out at amps.freetalklive.com. As James Hellerman has done, you can use your debit card, credit card, PayPal, whatever it is that works best for you. Finding out somebody just canceled their AMP this last week and then rejoined immediately thereafter. And I'd always like to send a little note out to folks, whether they're joining or canceling. And he said, oh, yeah, no worries, man. I was just canceling my PayPal. He deleted his PayPal account after the whole thing came out about PayPal, basically saying they were going to go after misinformation starting on November 3rd and start fining people $2,500. PayPal's now walked part of that back.
Oh, yeah, your stock drops.
Now PayPal saying, oh, no, we didn't mean to say we were going to fine people. That's not going to happen. But they're still going to go after accounts for misinformation and shut them down. So people are deleting their PayPal account, but it's still connected to Patreon. So if you still have it, you can use it. But if you prefer, use your debit card or credit card over at amps.freetalklive.com. You get some access to some perks like the AMP-only podcast that has the full radio show with no recorded commercials available for you to pop into your favorite podcast client at your leisure. Once again, that's amps.freetalklive.com. Takes you right to our Patreon page.
It would be really cool for Patreon to support cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
they obviously don't. You mentioning that made me think about how a lot of the libertarians I know on social media are canceling their PayPal accounts and saying things like, we need a new way of sending money online that doesn't require the banks or PayPal or big tech or whatever. Just various libertarians from across
actual libertarians that are like name and noteworthy, like you could identify them.
I wouldn't. What is noteworthy, right? I mean, they're people who are friends with me.
So you know them, okay?
I don't know if I've ever met them in person,
but they've got some cred for you believe that they are libertarians
from all over the United
States.
A lot of these are like Texas libertarians, and they don't do any activism. They've never accomplished anything. But yeah,
how can you be a libertarian in 2022 and not know that cryptocurrency exists? Or not know what it is there for?
I think they know that it exists, but they've never dove into it. They've never experienced it. So they know it exists as this theoretical thing, but they don't know that it is the solution that they're talking about. I don't know why that is. They probably have never acquired any cryptocurrency, much less used any. I don't know. It shocked me as well.
They're waiting for the collapse, Ian. That's when they'll start using it.
I don't think they have it. But, it was so jarring to me this morning that I made a meme about it. And the only reason I didn't post it because I was like, I should put the Free Talk Live logo on this because it's likely to get shared around a bit. And every time I do that and I don't put a logo on it.
How many people do you know that save money, things, preppers? I mean, these people are far and...
Well, I probably know more than the average person.
Yeah, but I mean, just generally.
Well, they don't have to be a prepper to have cryptocurrency.
No, but it's a form of saving. I mean,
it is. Yeah, that's true. And people don't do that.
It's the same of prepping, being prepared for what comes, and that's where crypto is right now.
I don't think we should view crypto as a form of savings, though, and maybe that's the mistake they're making. Where to them, crypto is an asset. It's a stock that they're using to make money. Whereas for us, it's an actual way of transmitting value from one person to another.
And holding on to value as well. I mean, saving crypto is a good plan, but also spending it, you need to do that too if you can in order to make it continue to be valuable.
So here are the two ways to look at this. Number one, hardly anyone out there saves anything. And they don't
live paycheck to paycheck.
Yes, and they don't prepare for the future. And number two, crypto isn't. They don't see crypto as anything but a savings mechanism.
Right. Yeah, that's the issue. And
unbelievable.
And by the way, I'm kind of in that camp myself.
Well,
I very rarely use crypto.
Well, you don't spend money. You're totally frugal. I mean, you barely have spent anything on anything.
Well, this is true.
Yeah,
because I'm a prepper.
You don't leave your house either.
But, I mean, crypto is a good store of value.
That's just gas money. I don't.
But not so that one can flip it into USD, right? It's a good store of value because it's purchasing one stake in the future where peer-to-peer currency and peer-to-peer transactions are possible and common.
I'm curious, when these people are expressing their disbelief or confusion about, why isn't there some way to transact without the big banks? Have you wrote back and said, have you heard about cryptocurrency?
No,
and what do they say?
I don't tend to interact with people on social media. I post and go. And occasionally I will look to see what other people are posting about to see if there's anything in the world that I've missed. And it was that was how I learned about PayPal doing this. I was like, that sounds like nonsense. And then more and more of my friends were like, I just canceled my PayPal. I'm like, joke's on you. PayPal canceled me years ago. And it was because I was using their number one competitor, cryptocurrency.
And then they, a year later or 2 years later, announced that they were going to offer quote unquote cryptocurrency to their users.
I'm going to have to find another option. I use PayPal for shipping. Especially eBay shipping, but I mean, I can...
Don't you have to use PayPal for eBay?
That's the thing. I don't think there's any other option.
Well, I know that at one time, PayPal owned eBay, but I think they spun it off. I believe they sold it, so maybe there is another way.
I don't know. They both charge me separately. eBay charges me, PayPal charges me. It's just two separate... So I don't know what's going on. But I mean, I just buy regular shipping through the post office using PayPal. I don't know what the other options are. If you're listening and you know how... You're techie out there and you know some other outlets... Let me know.
Did sell something on eBay this year, and I don't recall if there was if eBay's doing their own credit card processing now.
Right.
I know that eBay, I think, has some sort of banking backend now to where they can just do direct deposit, but I'll have to check on that for you.
I bought something off of eBay recently, and I didn't use PayPal, obviously. I used a card, but I don't know...
Direct on the site?
I don't know if PayPal was the actual processor of the payment, because sometimes when I go to buy something from a website or whatever, it opens up a PayPal thing, and PayPal is just the credit card processor for them.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the merchant. The only way I can get shipping to ship that item to you is through PayPal. And eBay has only given...
PayPal does the shipping calculation and prints out a label for you, or is it something...
I'm just saying I've purchased things within the last few years on eBay, and I don't have a PayPal account.
Yeah, but that money is being correct, but the merchant has to.
I don't know.
You as the purchaser don't. It doesn't really matter. You pay eBay and that's it.
If you
I don't think so because I've only once in my life sold anything on eBay, and I don't think I had a PayPal account then.
If I had a bank account to withdraw to, and I don't, I would withdraw the bulk of my PayPal balance to a bank account because the best thing you can probably do if you have to feel like you have to stay on PayPal is keep a minimum amount of funding
and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And that way, if they shut it down,
$100, I'll just leave it at that.
That way, if they shut you down, it's like not going to be the end of the world. Just
don't they
keep
reserve the
your
right to continue reaching into your bank account to take whatever money they want? Though,
ooh, that's a good point.
I thought they did
because my bank account is attached.
Even if you disconnect it and they decide that you owe them $2,500 or whatever, I think they have the right to
exactly. So if they and I would be on the wall, the target list for misinformation myself, and they're like, oh, look at this guy, he's on this radio program, and he has an account with us.
Well, I also saw a rumor that
he only has $100 in his account, but we'll just talk to his bank because we know his bank's got the rest of his money.
I saw a rumor that they're not even allowing people to delete accounts now.
Because of the bank run.
There's a big run, yeah. All right. So,
the fine print, man, of these contracts.
Do you want to get into my story about this? Because I do have something related about the tech industry. Or did you want to get into the more interesting one?
I like more interesting things, but actually I want to get into what I think is Dave Ridley's call here. Ridley, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, hey, I was waiting for the screener. Okay, so I actually have a thought about independence infrastructure.
Okay.
So I'm changing the subject. Is that right?
Please, no, it's fine.
Yeah. So
another reason to move to New Hampshire, by the way. There's no independence movement in Florida.
Yeah. So one of the complaints that people have about the New Hampshire independence drive is they say, well, we don't have the infrastructure. We can't. We're not ready, right? And I had an idea. Where, like, maybe, it's more of a brainstorm.
Before you get to the idea, Ridley, I do have a quick question. And we're going to hold on to you here, so we'll get into it in hour two in detail. But was that an objection in, like, 1776 or 1784, whenever it was, when New Hampshire declared independence from the king back then? Were there people saying...
Was New Hampshire the first to do that as well?
Yeah. Were there people back then, the loyalists, that were saying...
The redcoats.
Were they saying, we don't have the infrastructure? And there's like...
sure they were.
They're living in the woods.
There's always... Those people, those NPCs always exist. They're always around. Those Karens.
So we'll get to Dave more here with him in just a moment. We'll talk about that issue. Because there are objections to secession, but it usually is just a matter of informing people and wiping away their ignorance. Hour two's coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive. toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The leaders of 7 major industrialised countries have announced they'll continue supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. The G7 also said Russia would face severe consequences if it used chemical, biological or nuclear weapons. Russian missiles have struck a number of Ukrainian cities this week, killing at least 19 people, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the G7 at a virtual emergency meeting to boost the country's air defence capabilities. Meanwhile, the head of GCHQ, one of the UK's intelligence agencies, says Ukrainian forces are turning the tide in their fight against Russia. Our UK correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
Britain's top spies don't speak in public very often, and when they do, the world listens. In his speech on Tuesday, Sir Jeremy Fleming condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin for his veiled threats about nuclear weapons.
To even be talking about possible use of tactical nuclear weapons is a very dangerous thing to do. And if there really is contemplation about their use, then that would be catastrophic, and there would be serious repercussions from that.
Fleming also said that China's government fears freedom of speech and its own citizens, saying that its actions could represent a huge threat to us all. Extracts of his speech were released ahead of time, and Beijing said the claims had no basis in fact. Giles Gibson, London.
The International Monetary Fund has unveiled its World Economic Outlook for the year ahead, with a stark warning that the worst is yet to come. The IMF, holding its annual meeting in Washington, D.C., says the global economy faces steep challenges, shaped by 3 powerful forces: the war in Ukraine, inflation, and a deceleration of growth in China. The coronation of King Charles III will take place on May 6th next year. Buckingham Palace confirmed the ceremony will take place in Westminster Abbey, with Camilla, the Queen Consort, set to be crowned alongside her husband. Laura Macon-Isherwood reports from London.
The palace says the proceedings, which will take place 8 months after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, will reflect the monarch's role today and look towards the future. It's expected to be a slimmed-down version of the events King Charles's mother experienced, and there may be far fewer guests in attendance too. May the 6th is also the birthday of Prince Harry and Meghan the Duchess of Sussex's son, Archie. It's not clear yet if the family will travel from California to attend. Laura Macon-Isherwood, London.
And the US Treasury Secretary has urged G20 members to do more to help millions of people facing food insecurity. At an inaugural meeting between G20 finance and agricultural ministers, Janet Yellen said Russia's war in Ukraine is the cause of immense human suffering. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail again today at the continuing protests that have swept Iran, sparked by the death in custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, the young woman arrested last month by the country's morality police for failing to wear her head covering properly. Over the weekend, countless women in cities all over Iran defied the law and removed their hijabs as protests against the ruling regime continue to escalate. But with what end? Tom O'Connor is a senior writer on foreign policy for Newsweek.
Well, some of the difficulties of protests right now, and I've spoken to some Iranian opposition leaders, is part of the difficulties is the lack of specific demands and leadership in these protests. Now, that in some way makes them organic. That's their strength because they are organic protests. These are everyday Iranian people rising up looking for certain reforms. But the problem is there hasn't been a specific set of demands yet put out. We know that there is calls for a relaxation of certain protocols on dress for women specifically, but we haven't yet seen a specific list of demands. We've not yet seen any sort of movement, I would say, that would threaten the Iranian government just yet.
But the regime certainly seems to think it's under threat. Security forces in Iran have continued to use force in an effort to put down the protests, with human rights groups claiming at least 185 people have been killed since the demonstrations began. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denslow reporting.
According to a report released this week, people who paint themselves silver and pretend to be statues earn, on average, $10 million per year. The Onion sat down with economist Mark Cosgrave to learn more about the money-making potential of this highly lucrative employment path.
There's no more profitable career at the moment. If you compare these positions to other high-paying jobs, say physicians or mechanical engineers, you'll find that those individuals who have outfitted themselves with silver-painted boxes and can move their limbs stiffly as if they were a robot are making literally hundreds of times as much. At this point, I would say that the only job that offers anywhere near that kind of earning potential is dressing up like Batman and allowing people to pose for photos with you. And those guys who play paint buckets like drums have historically done well for themselves. But honestly, the recession hit these professions pretty hard, and a lot of them are only making something like $800,000 a year at this point. It's barely even worth their time.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, kicking off the second hour here. We got plenty of time. If you want to join the show, you can bring up anything that you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. Coming up, Mark Hamill apparently has been hired to pimp for the Ukraine.
To fight the evil empire, so he says.
I said hired initially. I'm not sure that hired is the right word. I'm not sure anyone is paying him to do this. It seems like they are, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, he's already gone out on his own.
Yeah.
I think he had like an interview with Vladimir earlier this month or something, and that's when he came out with the evil empire reference. So he's
well, the evil empire would, outlaw the opposition party and limit people's ability to access, what the other media was saying.
Yeah. Kind of like our government.
Well, the
Ukrainian
United States government at
British
least has
government?
not done that. They have not forbidden us from accessing Russia today. Ukraine has, and they did ban the opposition party.
Correct.
And
and now they're talking about a major media crackdown bill that they're looking at passing in Ukraine as well.
A media crackdown.
Yeah, would basically allow them to censor and shut down anything.
I thought they already did all of that. I thought that was months ago.
Now, there's a detailed story on RT.com about this. It's been in the works since 2018.
What a corrupt place. You know what?
Yeah,
4 years ago, Ukraine was the most corrupt, or one of the most corrupt
right.
European countries.
Now it's a bastion of freedom and democracy.
Democracy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that. But first, Dave Ridley is on the line. Ridley, you were sharing some thoughts with us on, what was it again?
Secession.
Independent infrastructure in New Hampshire.
Okay.
So, and I was talking more about political infrastructure, and the way that you can maybe build that might be to start sort of doing some of the things that independent countries do politically. So my idea, the best one I could come up with recently was, what if New Hampshire were to have its own ambassador to the UN?
What kind of ambassador?
Its own ambassador.
Well, you would have to get the UN to accept that, and that would mean recognizing New Hampshire as an independent nation. So I don't think that's going to fly.
And why do we want to talk to the UN? Why do we even care about what they think?
Also, the United States Constitution directly forbids any of its states from engaging in international diplomacy. So.
Oh, okay. So maybe that would stop it or slow it down.
They would never allow it anyway because they wouldn't acknowledge you as a nation.
I'm not saying it wouldn't. I mean, we could think of them. It wouldn't necessarily have to be an ambassador. They're just designated to go to the UN and just be there and get rejected or whatever happens to them. But they're just designated to represent New Hampshire there. And if the UN blows them off, they blow them off. But at least that way, the idea would be like a statewide election for somebody.
I like the idea, but I don't want any affiliation with the United Nations either.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, there's a reason why you might actually want that to some extent, and that is because, like, if you look at what happens in places like Kosovo and Taiwan, which don't have any really proper UN representation, they become sort of para-states And most para-states don't do very well. Taiwan is an exception. Kosovo is not doing that well.
What is a parrot state?
A para-state, like it's a partial state. Like it's sort of a state, but sort of not a state.
It's not acknowledged by a lot of the world, I think is what you're saying. Ridley?
Okay, yeah, correct. Yeah, it's not sufficiently.
Yeah. That's the big challenge when you form when you form the idea of a nation. Because remember, let's remind our audience here that nations are just ideas. These are just the idea of the state is just that. It's a terrible idea. It's a decrepit, old, violent idea, but it is one that people do subscribe to. So if you make your own nation, like they're trying to do in Liberland, which is a little piece of land. Yeah, it's a little piece of swampland I think it's the Danube. Is that the river where it's located between Serbia and Croatia, if I recall correctly?
It's an undesirable plot of land.
Yeah, that basically it's no man's land. It's not claimed by anywhere.
Yeah, if it was desirable,
it would be.
It would already be claimed. People would be using it as we speak.
And so the Liberland people have been trying to do this. They've been trying to form their own nation and get it acknowledged in some way, shape, or form by other nation states. Because that's kind of the game, is having other quote unquote nations acknowledge your nation as your own thing. So, and of course, that's going to be one of the difficulties that the former regions of Ukraine are going to be suffering under, is that they voted to leave Ukraine and join Russia, but a lot of the world's quote-unquote nations will not acknowledge their move and will continue to consider them part of Ukraine. So it's a big struggle, and it's frustrating. But Ridley, to your point about having somebody that's appointed to go to the UN, even if they get turned away, again, in order to have that appointment happen, you were suggesting putting it on a ballot, or state reps voting for it or something would be another option. But that's like, we're not even there yet, because we would still have to declare independence before you're ever going to have anything like that happen. And so I think you're getting a little ahead of yourself.
And how are most UN representatives selected? It's their presidents, right?
Correct.
The cabinets get together and like, all right, we want this guy because he's on our team. Right. So as far as voting, the people voting for something, it would never happen.
It would probably be the state legislature that would
probably the governor,
something like that.
Probably one of the government's lackeys.
He would be the president at that time.
Right, right.
So there must be something else that New Hampshire can do, which is associated with being an independent nation state.
You could issue passports.
I like that.
That's what Key West did when they were talking about becoming the Conch Republic. I don't know if you guys know anything about Key West's Conch Republic status. There was a situation, I think it was the Cold War, where because of their proximity to Cuba, there was some sort of cutoff, or they were not being acknowledged properly by the U.S. government. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the whole history of it. Somebody refreshed me the other day, and it has flown out of my mind. But essentially, they came up with their own Conch Republic concept and said, well, look, if the U.S. doesn't want us, we'll do our own thing.
And what would the passports be for? Just to leave New Hampshire? I mean, or just
what
regular.
What really saying is just to throw it in their face. I mean, the idea would be that, okay, well, New Hampshire now has its own national passport, just to say, look, we have this infrastructure in place for when we leave the United States. We've already got this done, is what Ridley's saying. What things can we do today that we can then point to and say, look, for the people that are saying we can't secede because we don't have the infrastructure, what kind of infrastructure can be built now before secession happens that we can say, yes, here it is.
Here, one question. When it comes to European countries, all friendly European countries are right next to each other. And do they have a passport system where people are standing around at gates and they're asking for your papers, please? When you walk from one country to the next, or do they even care? How does the ID system work in? I
think they used to have one of those, but part of the points of the European Union was to eliminate the need for that.
Right.
Sort of like the point of the United States was to eliminate the need for us to, need a New Hampshire passport to travel to Maine.
Right. So I mean, that's where we're running into a problem.
Well, but remember, passports didn't exist when the U.S. was founded.
We're trying to convince people that this is a good idea, and if you have to. Now what? Now I have to get a state ID and a passport just so I can go to Vermont or I can go to Massachusetts where I work?
Well, I don't think New Hampshire would require you to have the passport, but it's possible that Vermont or somewhere like that might. And I think the point of a New Hampshire passport would be to show other nations where you're from rather than New Hampshire.
So that way you could go to the UK or Europe or something like that on your New Hampshire passport, in theory. That's my best one that I got for you right now, Ridley.
Well, whatever's done at the state level, it should be something that does not cost tax dollars. There's got to be some way to fund it without taxes.
Well, if it's a new ID, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Well, when you
to
buy a
enroll
passport,
that.
you are paying for it through the U.S. government. You pay for that process.
Yeah, but this will be something new, and if they have to come up with a new scheme,
they would have to design it. I
Yeah.
guess there would be that.
Yeah, but they could still charge enough for the passport to, cover that money and say, hey, for the next 3 years, your passport is going to cost, $100, but after that, we'll have recuperated the research and development costs, and we'll drop the price to, $30
3
or
years.
whatever.
I want a passport that lasts forever.
Yeah,
like,
why not?
What is it? Arizona has a lifetime ID or
Until
something.
65. So if you get your driver's license at age 21 in Arizona, it lasts you for more than 40
Yeah,
years.
this
Yes.
4-year thing is ridiculous. I know people.
Well, passports are 10 years at the federal level.
Well, I don't. You know what? Yeah, I know it's throwing it in their face and whatnot to make a point, but I don't want to have anything to do with the UN.
I'm with you on
with
that.
their Agenda 20 and 21 and their Agenda 2030.
Who knows
eating the bugs, living in the pod? No.
Who knows what kind of obligations you take on whenever you join that particular organization?
You got to drink baby blood.
Thanks for the call tonight, Ridley. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open, and you can join the show here at 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and Conan.
603-283-6160. If you've worked or lived at Camp Lejeune between the years of 1953 to 1988, and you've suffered from cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, you might be entitled to compensation. There were contaminants in the drinking water that have led to some pretty nasty diseases. There might be some deadlines involved in filing for this stuff, so don't wait. Give a call to this number to see if you or a loved one are eligible. It's 888-918-1037. That's 888-918-1037. If you were at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and you've had a serious health issue, money is set aside. Call 888-918-1037. Let's go to the phones here. We got Rob on the line in Vermont. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, so you guys were talking about passports, and I remember Free Talk Live did a segment on this guy from Vermont, really older guy.
Yeah.
He had a world passport.
That's right.
And
we know something about
I'm
those.
drawing a blank as to what the guy's name was.
Yeah, I would have to look it up as well. But if you look up World Passport founder, I'm sure it'll come up. He was very old at the time we discussed this, which was probably a decade ago. I would be shocked if he's still alive. Like, I think he was in his 90s when we first talked about this. But the World Passport, there's a name for them. World Service Authority. That's who issues it. As I understand it, they are still around. They are still offering these passports to people. Mine was taken from me by the federal government as part of my bail conditions. I had to hand over the World Passport, even though the feds consider it to be a novelty passport or a fantasy passport, I think is the official terminology for it. But it's a really interesting history. One that if you're interested in alternative identification systems, you should really look into, because the founder of the World Passport was actually, I believe, in World War II. He was fighting in World War II, and he became disillusioned with war at that time.
I can imagine.
And he came out with this concept, and it has been something that he's utilized to give people who are like refugees, who don't have any identification, their own identification. They do like a charity thing. If you can afford to, then they will obviously charge you for their passports, but they do offer some of them free to people in the right circumstances around the world, and it's very interesting.
Is this like a sovereign citizen type, but on the world stage?
No, it's actually not that, Conan. It's kind of almost the reverse of that to some extent, in that they actually
want to be a part of the big picture, the global
They
picture.
acknowledge the UN at the World Service Authority. In fact, they use the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, I believe is the document, where it says something in there. To the credit of the UN, they didn't get everything wrong. In this document, it actually says that people should have a right to travel freely. And so they cite that particular status or that passage of the document.
I'm here at worldcitizengov.org. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including one's own, and to return to one's country. And then they have an application process for your the World Passport is a 30-page machine redeemable travel document, MRTD, with alphanumeric code line scan and passport photo and ghost security paper with embedded logo.
You said 30 pages?
30
passports have a bunch of pages, and then they're usually blank.
For stamping.
See, I've never had a passport. I've never needed one. I mean, I want one now, but I can't have one. That may be why I want one. But I like that idea of the World Passport, because if I'm a citizen of anywhere, it's planet Earth. I consider myself first and foremost an Earthling, not an American, not even a human.
Right.
Just
This basically
an
says
Earthling.
you are a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
Is what they're saying.
The world passport represents the inalienable human right of freedom of travel on planet Earth. Therefore, it is premised that on the fundamental oneness or the unity of the human community.
The founder's name, I believe, is Gary Davis, and I think you're on a different website, Conan. I don't know if what you're describing is a competitor to the World Service Authority. So the people that I got my World Passport from was worldservice.org. So it's a different website. I don't know if it's just a different front or what.
They're connected to that.
They're connected?
Page. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Do your due diligence on this one, though, and make sure you're getting it from the right place. But yeah, thanks, Rob, for bringing that up. I think Gary Davis, and it's Garry, is the founder's name there.
I just remembered New Hampshire does, or the Free State Project, rather, does have a passport for the state of New Hampshire. It's a joke. It's clearly a joke.
Yeah, it's not like a serious-looking passport. Right. This one looks and feels, it's got the same materials. It's got, they must have figured out who makes passports and hired them, because it's got that same quality to it when you get it from the World Service Authority. Rob, thanks for the call, man. I appreciate you bringing that up.
But I guess the true question is whether you're going to walk into an airport and go to another country and hold this thing out and it's going to be accepted.
It's worked in a few places, as I understand it.
In the 1970s. These days, I think it's going to be less likely to work. I will say I did try it in Mexico once, and it did not. What
work. Did they tell you? We got to go back to the back of the line, or?
Well, no, I have my U.S. passport with me, so
you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong thing.
Well, the question is, if you'd pushed it, would they?
Well, that's the thing. Like, usually when you're going to an airport and you're traveling somewhere, you don't have the time to experiment and get held in.
Or the desire. I don't want to get arrested and held in Italy.
That's when you go sit in a room for the next 12 hours while they wait.
Usually you've got somewhere to be, right? Like, you just don't have. You're not just there for fun. You're there to meet somebody or go to a business event or whatever it is. So in my case, it was in Acapulco, and we had to be somewhere. So I did bring it out, and I did offer it to the girl at the passport desk, and she looked at it confused.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but the point of it isn't necessarily to be. I mean, in the long run, I would hope that it gets accepted by places. But it's just like anything else. It's like cryptocurrency. You're not going to walk into Walmart and get them to accept Bitcoin. You're not going to walk into the United Kingdom and get them to accept the World Passport. It takes activists attempting it, and
I agree.
What is the word I'm looking for? Requesting that other people accept it. I'm spacing on the word, but advocating for people to accept it.
They apparently also issue other documents at World Service Authority, including an identity card, a World Birth Certificate, a World Marriage Certificate, a World Political Asylum Card, and the World Press Card for members of the World Media Association. So they do more than just passport issuance there, which I didn't even know that. So it's an interesting.
I might look into the media one and the refugee, the political refugee one.
There's a cool video of the founder. Again, very very old man at the time it was even taken, so it's probably been a decade and a half. But the video of the founder crossing the border between Canada and the U.S. and he has his world passport, and that's what he uses. He claims to have used it many times going from country to country, and he has been arrested in the attempt of using this. So you have to accept that is a likely outcome. But they let him out at some point, right? And he ended up coming back to Vermont. Well, what it looked like in the video was that the Border Patrol people knew who he was, so he didn't need the passport because they knew him, and so they were just letting him through because of that.
Sort of like the cops here in Keene, if they were to pull you over or pull me over or something, they'd be like, okay, we know this person.
Yeah. So more coming up here if you want to share your thoughts, and we're going to get into Mark Hamill. Is he pimping the Ukrainian state? And is he doing it on behalf of Disney? We'll find out more coming up here in moments. You can join us as well here on Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The leaders of 7 major industrialised countries have announced they'll continue supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. The G7 also said Russia would face severe consequences if it used chemical, biological or nuclear weapons. Russian missiles have struck a number of Ukrainian cities this week, killing at least 19 people, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the G7 at a virtual emergency meeting to boost the country's air defence capabilities. Meanwhile, the head of GCHQ, one of the UK's intelligence agencies, says Ukrainian forces are turning the tide in their fight against Russia. Our UK correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
Britain's top spies don't speak in public very often, and when they do, the world listens. In his speech on Tuesday, Sir Jeremy Fleming condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin for his veiled threats about nuclear weapons.
To even be talking about possible use of tactical nuclear weapons is a very dangerous thing to do. And if there really is contemplation about their use, then that would be catastrophic, and there would be serious repercussions from that.
Fleming also said that China's government fears freedom of speech and its own citizens, saying that its actions could represent a huge threat to us all. Extracts of his speech were released ahead of time, and Beijing said the claims had no basis in fact. Giles Gibson, London.
The International Monetary Fund has unveiled its World Economic Outlook for the year ahead, with a stark warning that the worst is yet to come. The IMF, holding its annual meeting in Washington, D.C., says the global economy faces steep challenges, shaped by 3 powerful forces: the war in Ukraine, inflation, and a deceleration of growth in China. The coronation of King Charles III will take place on May 6th next year. Buckingham Palace confirmed the ceremony will take place in Westminster Abbey, with Camilla, the Queen Consort, set to be crowned alongside her husband. Laura Macon-Isherwood reports from London.
The palace says the proceedings, which will take place 8 months after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, will reflect the monarch's role today and look towards the future. It's expected to be a slimmed-down version of the events King Charles's mother experienced, and there may be far fewer guests in attendance too. May the 6th is also the birthday of Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex's son, Archie. It's not clear yet if the family will travel from California to attend. Laura Macon-Isherwood, London.
And the US Treasury Secretary has urged G20 members to do more to help millions of people facing food insecurity. At an inaugural meeting between G20 finance and agricultural ministers, Janet Yellen said Russia's war in Ukraine is the cause of immense human suffering. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up absolutely anything you want. That's the point here. Phones are open every single night. And you can join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. You can enjoy various different features there, including our Odyssey channel. You can go to video.freetalklive.com, and that is where you will find video archives going back for some large number of years. You get pretty much full archives, except for tonight where I forgot to hit the start button until the end of the first segment. So you get most of the time the full show there, completely uncut. So head over to video.freetalklive.com. We also live stream through Odyssey as well. And I hear Odyssey is going to be start adding like a kind of a competitor to Patreon soon. I'm very interested in seeing how that pans out. They're claiming they're going to give users or the channel operators 100%, which, I mean, there must be a credit card fee first, but I don't know. I don't have the details on that. We'll look into it as it rolls out. As I understand it, it's coming out imminently on the Odyssey platform. They're literally looking to compete directly with Patreon. So
there used to be something called Motion or something like that, the Motion Project, that was a blockchain-based competitor to Kickstarter. I guess it never really took off, and I don't remember anything about it. It was early on in the Call to Freedom days, right after we moved to 5 days a week or 7 days a week, whatever it was. So I don't remember the full specifics, but competition's good.
Yeah, there's been a few of those, but I think they're going to be using credit cards. But again, I'll let you know more as I learn more about it. But Odyssey's doing some cool stuff over there. And
I'm sure they'll have a platform for cryptocurrency, though.
But we've been there for a long time supporters. It's a great video platform. So check us out there at video.freetalklive.com. All right, Arya, so you've been wanting to talk about this Mark Hamill story. This guy seems to be a pretty hard left statist. I've seen some of the posts he's made on social media. He's been in favor of big government since much longer than his recent support of Ukraine, but now he's back in the news, or you want to talk about him tonight.
Yeah, well, he's not a major part of this story, right? He's just the latest example of a silly PR campaign that's been going on throughout the last year in regard to this Ukrainian-Russian war. And it's an article I have from CaitlinJohnston.com. A good and righteous proxy war wouldn't need such cartoonish PR. And they're right. The PR surrounding this war in Russia, this war between Russia and Ukraine, it's silly. The ghost of Kiev or whatever it was, the completely fabricated fighter pilot who was killing all of these Russians.
Do you remember the images of like the supermodels that were holding rifles and pretending to be on the front lines while wearing full makeup?
And grandmas, too.
I didn't see that one.
That was real early on.
Yeah.
And of course, Putin has every type of disease that you can think of. He should have been dead 3 months ago, but I don't. Who knows why he's still kicking it unless he's
he's a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
And now there's a trans soldier for Ukraine that they're parading around like that.
But what was the Netflix we're going to working on? Was it Trans Ukraine Black Russian?
I don't remember the specifics. Something like
Romeo
that.
and Juliet type event.
Mm-hmm.
But more recently, Star Wars megastar Mark Hamill was recently named an ambassador for United 24, which is the fundraising platform of the Ukrainian government. So evidently they have their own fundraising platform. I've never heard of it, but it's called United 24, where according to the Times, his attention will center on, quote, the procurement, repair, and replacement of drones, as well as pilot training.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know.
So they're not. I thought we're just handing them, U.S. in particular, is handing them out fresh drones. Why does he need new ones?
Well, because Ukraine, Zelensky is a warmonger, and if you have 10 drones, you want 20, and if you have 20, you want 40.
Yeah, you know what's happening. We're handing him drones,
and he wants more,
and missile launchers. He's keeping one. So he gets 10 drones. He's selling 9 of them to third world countries.
Maybe.
You know he is. They don't. No one knows where this money and these munitions and these tanks and these missile launchers and these drones are going.
It's easy to shuffle money around, and under war times, no one's paying any attention.
No, and it's all old equipment. It's the equipment that our military-industrial complex needs to get rid of so that they can process and create new 2022 munitions. So they get rid of the old stuff. Send them to some country that's just gonna, I don't know, they're gonna sit on a shelf, or they don't have the proper components to work properly, so they don't even work anyways. This is just a huge scam. It's just, oh my God.
Yeah, there's actually
we've gone from the Middle. Let's just break it down. We've gone from the Middle East. That didn't work out. Pulled all the troops out.
They're not gone from the Middle East. There are still troops in Iraq, and there are still troops in Syria, and there are still bombs being dropped in Yemen that were paid for by the United States and given to Saudi Arabia. And there's still, what's the other one that I can't think of at the moment? The United States didn't leave the Middle East by any stretch of the imagination.
Couple troops did.
Some did.
Afghanistan, there was a pretty
They may
big
have left
pullout.
Afghanistan,
and that's fine.
But
And
now
that's good.
we're in Europe, and it's just
I'm not in Europe.
the war continues. This is 1984.
well, that was inevitable. I mean, we knew that the U.S. military was going to find a new place to wage some sort of war.
Yeah, maybe that's why they pulled out of Afghanistan, was they were getting ready to move into Ukraine.
Give the troops a couple of months to rest back in the States, and then send them right back out again.
So from the Times, in this long and unequal fight, Ukraine needs continuous additional support. That's why I was honored President Zelensky asked me to become an ambassador for the Army of Drones, said Hamill in a statement.
Wow. Wait a minute. Wasn't there something in Star Wars where there was an army of clones?
Yeah, army of stormtroopers, drones, stormtroopers, drones are the same thing, and he's happy that he's a part of this now. Luke, you're supposed to be fighting these guys that can't shoot straight. Holy crap! What a reversal.
Yeah.
I know for certain that Ukrainians need drones to protect their land, their freedom, and the values of the entire democratic world.
The country where they've literally banned the opposition parties. So democratic. The country where a democratic vote was held in eastern Ukraine, and the Ukrainian government and its Western supporters called it a sham before it even transpired. Democracy. Sorry.
Absolutely. Right now is the best time for everyone to come together and help Ukraine stand up in this war with the evil empire. In a statement,
he's literally using Star Wars iconography
and
to paint.
80s political propaganda.
They're literally doing exactly that. In part of this campaign, there's an X-wing here. An X-wing is one of the types of ships from Star Wars, where the top half of it, it's just flying, but the top half of it is blue and the bottom half of it is gold, and below it says resist in large letters, and then below it in slightly smaller letters, stand with Ukraine, and then there's yet another image of the Ukrainian flag. So they're using literal Star Wars iconography.
And it's called the Army of Drones program. This is crazy.
Do you remember the very beginning of this thing? We were talking about some of the ridiculous propaganda that was coming out. Do you remember when people were posting video from some video game called Arma 3 of helicopters being shot down and claiming that this was really what was happening?
Yeah, it was either that or writing from 2014.
Right. And
but did any of the media actually do this, or were these just like random trolls on Twitter?
It was getting passed around online. I don't know what media picked it up. It wouldn't surprise me if some did, just because it was persuasive looking. But how long before somebody starts passing around X-Wing fighter video flying over Ukraine as though this is actually happening? And how many people would buy it?
You wait for it. Babylon Bee tomorrow morning.
I just think some people would actually buy that one.
How fresh is this news? Babylon Bee is going to cover this tomorrow. Mark Hamill represents the Army of Drones, and it's him in front. He's there with Darth Vader. They got the arms around each other.
This is about 2 weeks old. This news.
Oh, really?
I've got the actual announcement from United 24, which is the Ukrainian pimping fundraising site or whatever.
In a statement thanking Hamill for his support, Zelensky said, "The light will win over darkness. I believe in this. Our people believe in this. Thank you for taking on this difficult mission of being the first ambassador to help Ukraine raise funds for the Army of Drones to support our defenders. It is really important."
Luke, this is not the way. You've joined what you're supposed to hate.
Meanwhile, the guy who he's helping, Volodymyr Zelensky, if you translate his name on independent translation sites, it's actually the evil one owns the world. More coming up. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeen.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeen.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Energy got expensive. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. There are things you can do right there at home to cut energy cost. Are you running a load of wash? Unless you're attacking serious stains, the cold water mode is okay for most of what you're washing. And wait until you have a full load to save electricity and water. Ditto for the dishwasher, which will also save on detergent, which is pricey now. And stocking up on groceries doesn't just take advantage of bargains you find. Your freezer works more efficiently when it's full, because all the stuff in there is frozen, so you'll use less electricity. As for the fridge, set it between 28 and 42 degrees Fahrenheit, and the freezer between 0 and 5. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here, and you can join us at 603-283-6160. Talking about the latest propaganda on behalf of Ukraine. Mark Hamill apparently has been recruited to be a spokesperson. An ambassador, I believe is the term they're using. For
the Army of Drones.
Yep, for the United 24, which is the Ukrainian government's fundraising platform, because they're not getting enough. They're not getting enough billions of dollars.
I think, aren't they up to like 100 million so far?
No, you mean billions?
I'm sorry, billions in less than a year.
It wouldn't surprise me. Is there a counter somewhere that we can look at? Because it was like 40 billion at first, and then another 9, and then another 11, and then another 13, and I've lost track. I don't know how much it is.
It's all meaningless to me. I mean,
well, most Americans can't fathom what $1 billion is anyway, right?
Yeah, I certainly can't.
Let alone 100 of them.
But I mean, $1 billion, $10 billion, $1 trillion. Hell, I don't care. It's all meaningless money to me.
It means a lot to him, though, because he keeps asking for more, more, more. It's never enough.
Well, that's his job. That's what they told him to do. Oh, and by the way, do not even attempt any type of peace talks with Putin.
No, he won't.
You just keep going. Well, he's been told not to.
Yeah.
He was told not to.
He's doing exactly what he's told.
Who do you think told him not to?
I know Boris Johnson was one of them.
I wouldn't be.
Well, yeah.
We don't know who those people are. World Economic Forum, the Bilderberg Group, some group as of yet unnamed. whoever it is, all these billions are going into the hands of apparently Nazis. There was another story recently about like a general. So the highest ranked person so far in the Ukrainian military, RT, was reporting on an image that's been circulating of this general wearing a swastika on a bracelet.
So it wasn't just the SS they've been wearing; it was an actual swastika.
There's other things like that have come out as well. But this is the highest ranking person in the.
And this is an Azov battalion dude.
I don't know if it's Azov battalion or it's just Ukrainian military or whatever all those things are. But
well,
he's
they're not
supposedly
allowed.
A top general.
Well, they're not allowed to talk about it. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Reporters ask them, "What's that mean? What's that SS on your chest mean?"
Mm-hmm.
Can't say anything about that.
Well, because they don't want to openly admit that they're Nazis.
Of course not.
But aren't Nazis supposed to be all patriotic and proud of who they are?
Not when they're getting billions of dollars and keep it on the down low.
Exactly. Yeah. You know the craziest part about this is, and if you do any research as far as the Azov battalion and Zelensky, the first thing you're going to get, all the articles are going to get is proud Jewish president,
right?
Which is now that's strange right there. The fact that they were able to get this mobster. That's what he is, by the way, an actor, comedian, mobster. And
now he's teaming up with another actor.
And he's Jewish? How does this work?
Well, I mean, the Nazis in Ukraine, they have different targets than the Nazis of the 1940s. They're using different scapegoats, right?
And there are such things as self-hating Jews.
There are also those, yeah.
You think he's one?
I don't know. I don't want to go out on a limb, but what else do we need to know, Aria?
Well, on the subject of raising money, there's United 24, which is Ukraine's little propaganda arm that's raising money. They've raised $188 million in donations, including a recent $5 million contribution from the Pfizer Foundation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good ally.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, of course, Barbara Streisand announced that she would also serve as an ambassador.
There's another prominent Jew.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the record,
does she know what's going on?
Do they care? I mean,
they're Nazis.
It's not.
They're literal Nazis.
I understand that, but as I just pointed out, it's not anti-Semitism that they're focusing on. It's anti-Russianism.
Not
or whatever.
yet. Not yet. First, they came for so and so, your socialists, and then they came for the Jews, or was. However it works, they'll get you. They'll get you in the end. You'll be up against the wall after they take care of business.
Mm-hmm.
So for the record, if you were under the impression that this proxy war could not possibly get any more Disney-fied, you are wrong. Hamill celebrated his new position by tweeting a graphic showing a Star Wars spaceship wearing the Ukrainian flag colors. I described that a minute ago. Wow. Which the actor captioned in Polish because Hollywood is brain poison. I don't know why they bothered to say that. Other recent Twitter PR shenanigans for this war includes the Ukrainian government account talking to its Crimea account in the cringiest imitation of viral brand tweets you could possibly imagine. And he's not wrong. So there's the official Ukrainian Twitter account, and apparently they have a Crimea account. Now, Crimea, for those who don't know, is a separate nation that is not part of Ukraine. I believe they're part of the Russian Federation now, but they're certainly not part of Ukraine. But Ukraine tweeted...
I'm sorry, is that legit? They've been fighting over it for a whole decade.
It depends who you ask. It's legit to Russia, but it's not legit to Ukraine, and so therefore the other Ukrainian allies, I'm sure, would like to consider Crimea part of Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's just a Twitter handle. So
apparently when Russia annexed Crimea, they didn't get the Twitter account.
Yeah, sadly. But Ukraine tweeted at Crimea, "Hey, at Crimea, what's new?" To which Crimea responded, "At Ukraine, getting unchained on my way home," suggesting that Crimea is going to once more become part of Ukraine.
Now, wait a minute. Didn't this happen after the bridge blew up? Didn't you tell me that off the air?
No, I didn't mention any bridge. This happened on October the 8th.
I believe that was the same day.
Yeah, that just happened. That just happened.
Look, at 11:45 a.m., but I don't know what time zone that was. So I don't know.
Where was the bridge located at?
Crimea, between Crimea and Russia. So that would be, untethering, right? Oh, we're breaking our what was it? The word?
Unchained.
Unchaining.
Well, first they take out a pipeline or two. And now they've got a major transport into Russia.
The major, yeah. So October 8th at 6:07 a.m., a fire broke out on the Crimean Bridge as a result of an explosion.
Does that tweet have the date and time on it?
She said it was
It
11
does, but
something.
I mean, we don't know what the time zone of this tweet is.
Presuming it's the same time zone, then 4 hours later or 5 hours later, there
Very
they were
interesting.
tweeting that they're breaking free of Russia.
Could be.
And again, Ukraine.
It's not a good look at any rate.
No, and it kind of again seems to point to Ukraine as having done this bridge explosion, or at least supporting,
or someone who supports Ukraine.
The bridge explosion. The Russian, by the way, the Russian official position on this now is that UK intelligence plotted the Crimean Bridge bombing as far back as April of this year. According to RT.com, UK intelligence officials apparently commissioned a study in April examining different ways they could blow up Russia's Crimea Bridge, according to the Grey Zone. The secret plot was drawn up at the request of senior British Army intelligence operative Chris Donnelly, citing internal documents and correspondence that the investigative journalism outlet obtained from an unidentified source. A stated goal was to destroy the bridge to cut off a key Russian supply route, isolate military forces in Crimea, and temporarily block maritime access to the Sea of Azov. And then they go further into...
this sounds kind of like, when Biden came out earlier this year and he was like, nope, the Nord Stream is not going to make it.
That's right. And
Paraphrasing, of course. And it just coincidentally...
What is the Nord Stream?
Those are the pipelines going from Russia to...
And that was like a week before the Crimean Bridge attack, by the way. So first Nord Stream 2 gets hit.
Yep.
Then a week later, basically,
and they blamed it on Russia. It's some kind of weird false flag attack.
Yeah.
So after all of this isn't very surprising. After all, Volodymyr Zelensky is a well-known Ukrainian actor.
He is.
And he's been drumming up Western support for his war by modeling in Vogue, appearing in the Grammy Awards, the Venice Film Festival.
He's pressing the flesh with all kinds of Hollywood stars. I think, didn't Bono go over there or something like that?
And he played in the subway or something.
Bono was mentioned earlier.
Yeah, they actually had some kind of musical event in the subway.
Yeah, because it's so dangerous, right? Let's bring the Hollywood stars over.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to be out in the open where you can get bombed.
Yeah.
It's safe down there.
Mm-hmm.
Since this war began, the Western media have been blanketing the airways with astonishingly biased coverage like nothing we've seen before. And there's just constant links throughout this paragraph of citing examples of exactly this. Russian media are purged from the airwaves, which didn't happen in the United States, but it did happen in a lot of Western society. While censorship of dissident voices has drastically escalated online with regard to this war, social media algorithms artificially boost corrupt propaganda outlets, which aggressively push the imperial line. Anti-Russia trolling operations are loudly praised and amplified by corporate media, government agencies, warmongering think tanks funded by Western governments, and branches of the U.S. military. This is a proxy war that simply could not happen if it wasn't backed to the hilt by the most powerful government on earth.
It sure as hell wouldn't have lasted this long, I don't think.
Yeah, the real evil empire, Mark Hamill.
Mm-hmm.
Get it straight.
Yeah, Ukraine wouldn't be able to stand against Russia without all of the backing and all of the sanctions and all of that.
Not this long.
This would have been resolved 20 years ago.
And before anyone objects, yes, this is indisputably a proxy war. If it isn't a proxy war when you're sending billions of dollars of weapons to be used by CIA-trained fighters, aided by U.S. military intelligence and U.S. Special Forces and CIA operatives on the ground, then there has never been a proxy war.
And let's not forget U.S. mercenaries. Lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why U.S. officials and the mass media have been openly calling it a proxy war. I haven't seen any of that, but yes, it's a proxy war.
It obviously is, yeah. The number here, if you want to join the show, is 603-283-6160. You can weigh in here on the Ukraine-Russia situation. The Hollywood stars galore are taking the side of Ukraine and trying to get people to give them even more money to
warmongers, all of you.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The leaders of 7 major industrialised countries have announced they'll continue supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. The G7 also said Russia would face severe consequences if it used chemical, biological or nuclear weapons. Russian missiles have struck a number of Ukrainian cities this week, killing at least 19 people, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the G7 at a virtual emergency meeting to boost the country's air defence capabilities. Meanwhile, the head of GCHQ, one of the UK's intelligence agencies, says Ukrainian forces are turning the tide in their fight against Russia. Our UK correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
Britain's top spies don't speak in public very often, and when they do, the world listens. In his speech on Tuesday, Sir Jeremy Fleming condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin for his veiled threats about nuclear weapons.
To even be talking about possible use of tactical nuclear weapons is a very dangerous thing to do. And if there really is contemplation about their use, then that would be catastrophic, and there would be serious repercussions from that.
Fleming also said that China's government fears freedom of speech and its own citizens, saying that its actions could represent a huge threat to us all. Extracts of his speech were released ahead of time, and Beijing said the claims had no basis in fact. Giles Gibson, London.
The International Monetary Fund has unveiled its World Economic Outlook for the year ahead, with a stark warning that the worst is yet to come. The IMF, holding its annual meeting in Washington, D.C., says the global economy faces steep challenges, shaped by 3 powerful forces: the war in Ukraine, inflation, and a deceleration of growth in China. The coronation of King Charles III will take place on May 6th next year. Buckingham Palace confirmed the ceremony will take place in Westminster Abbey, with Camilla, the Queen Consort, set to be crowned alongside her husband. Laura Macon-Isherwood reports from London.
The palace says the proceedings, which will take place 8 months after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, will reflect the monarch's role today and look towards the future. It's expected to be a slimmed-down version of the events King Charles's mother experienced, and there may be far fewer guests in attendance too. May the 6th is also the birthday of Prince Harry and Meghan the Duchess of Sussex's son, Archie. It's not clear yet if the family will travel from California to attend. Laura Macon-Isherwood, London.
And the US Treasury Secretary has urged G20 members to do more to help millions of people facing food insecurity. At an inaugural meeting between G20 finance and agricultural ministers, Janet Yellen said Russia's war in Ukraine is the cause of immense human suffering. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail again today at the continuing protests that have swept Iran, sparked by the death in custody of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, the young woman arrested last month by the country's morality police for failing to wear her head covering properly. Over the weekend, countless women in cities all over Iran defied the law and removed their hijabs as protests against the ruling regime continue to escalate. But with what end? Tom O'Connor is a senior writer on foreign policy for Newsweek.
Well, some of the difficulties of protests right now, and I've spoken to some Iranian opposition leaders, is part of the difficulties is the lack of specific demands and leadership in these protests. Now, that in some way makes them organic. That's their strength because they are organic protests. These are everyday Iranian people rising up looking for certain reforms. But the problem is there hasn't been a specific set of demands yet put out. We know that there is calls for a relaxation of certain protocols on dress for women specifically, but we haven't yet seen a specific list of demands. We've not yet seen any sort of movement, I would say, that would threaten the Iranian government just yet.
But the regime certainly seems to think it's under threat. Security forces in Iran have continued to use force in an effort to put down the protests, with human rights groups claiming at least 185 people have been killed since the demonstrations began. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denslow reporting.
Interesting new ad campaign from Applebee's, which is encouraging customers to visit the restaurant ironically.
They're designed to attract young people to Applebee's by inviting them to ridicule its food service and atmosphere. Here, take a look.
What do you guys want to do?
We could go to Applebee's. No, let's seriously go to Applebee's.
Okay.
Look, guys, it's grilled.
It's just like my neighborhood restaurant, only completely geographically non-specific.
Yeah, nothing like a wild time at Applebee's, right?
Applebee's. Wouldn't it be funny to go to Applebee's?
I like
Isn't that
it.
persuasive?
Yeah.
But, they're not resting on their laurels. They're adding new menu items designed to be ridiculed outright, like the fajita cordon bleu and the chicken strip explosion.
Those sound ridiculous.
I know, but, so far this has been so successful that Applebee's is actually prepping a second series of ads aimed at customers who enjoy making fun of annoying young people who do things ironically.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. The phones are open, and you can join us here as we kick off the third hour. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. So much in the news to cover here tonight. And you can, of course, bring up anything you want. Did you guys see the quick video clip that's been making the rounds here on social media today by what I believe to be, I don't know if he's a Pole or a Dutch person. There's like a representative or a parliament guy from the EU who has put out a video showing an interview that, while he was asking questions of somebody from Pfizer, one of the administrators from Pfizer, and they admitted in front of this panel at the European Union that they never tested their vaccination on preventing transmission. So they've come out now and they've publicly admitted that. Did either of you catch this video?
I didn't, but I'm not terribly surprised to hear it. Why would you test for that, right? You don't test your flu vaccine to see whether or not someone who has been vaccinated can transmit the flu to someone else. You care about whether or not they can catch the flu.
Because they claimed it. Because the idea was that...
Oh, did they? You were supposed to be less likely to transmit COVID if you were vaccinated and you got sick?
I believe that claim was
but
made.
You're not supposed to get sick.
Well, that's the point
if
of
you get
most
the vaccine.
vaccines.
Correct.
But that's not what they said about this vaccine.
Well, they said it from the get-go. They said it, and then it turned out that it wasn't true, and then they had to renege on their original assumptions and saying, "Oh, well, it just prevents you from dying or getting really sick."
Yeah, they kept changing, moving the goalposts when it came to this vaccine. Initially, it had come out, they'd said it was going to be 100% effective. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It was going to be 100% effective, and then the number kept going down.
The points kept going down every week.
How scientific. Yeah. Nothing's 100% effective.
But the science changes, Arya.
Well, and she actually, in this quick clip, I'm just going to play it here just to get it out and get this out there to you guys who haven't seen this or heard this yet. Here it is from Rob Roos. He is a member of the European Parliament, and his Twitter is Rob_Roos, R-O-O-S. Here's what he had to say.
If you don't get vaccinated, you're antisocial. This is what the Dutch Prime Minister and Health Minister told us. You don't get vaccinated just for yourself, but also for others. You do it for all of society. That's what I said. Today, this turned out to be complete nonsense. In a COVID hearing in the European Parliament, one of the Pfizer directors just admitted to me, at the time of introduction, the vaccine had never been tested on stopping the transmission of the virus. This removes the entire legal basis for the COVID passport. The COVID passport that led to massive institutional discrimination as people lost access to essential parts of society. I find this to be shocking, even criminal. Please watch the video until the end.
So
Voor u, mevrouw Small, heb ik de volgende vraag waar ik een duidelijk antwoord op wil. And I will speak in English so there are no misunderstandings. Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place.
Hold on!
Yeah, I knew you guys were going to love that one.
Holy crap.
What does that even mean?
The speed of science.
Like, what does that even mean? The speed of science? Isn't science supposed to be slow and plodding
methodical?
And
it's methodical, but it doesn't have to be slow. I mean, it's certainly not a speed. And to have the audacity, I hope this woman dies in a plane crash.
Well, it does have to be slow if you're checking your work, right? At the very least, you should be, judicious about it and double check and be, make sure you're doing things the way you're supposed to.
I wonder if she just came up with that on the top of her head. It just was the first time it popped up. This is a term that they actually use.
I don't know.
Back in the lab.
I said I hope this woman dies in a plane crash. I obviously don't mean that. That's being hyperbolic.
I hope she gets COVID.
Lord.
I hope she gets COVID.
She probably already did.
Like all of them, yeah.
No, she's in her 40s or whatever. She's not going to die from COVID.
She's more likely to die from the vaccine.
All right, I'm sorry, from the vaccine.
Here's a little bit more.
In the market.
This is scandalous. Millions of people worldwide felt forced to get vaccinated because of the myth that you do it for others. Now this turned out to be a cheap lie. This should be exposed. Please share this video.
There you go.
No, but when was this aired?
Fresh.
But this is not new news. Even Fauci came out almost a year ago and admitted that the vaccine is in fact a leaky vaccine. We talked about this on the show. I don't think you were here that night. But I compared this to another vaccine that's been out for over 50 years called Marek's disease in chickens.
No, I was here for that. Leaking isn't necessarily a bad thing, though.
They don't. It doesn't permit them from leaking the virus out and spreading it. It just keeps them alive. And so now they have a Franken disease.
Well, you have it straight from the mouth of Pfizer, one of the Pfizer directors under testimony at the European
But it's okay. They gave $5 million to Ukraine to support the war effort.
This is my biggest fear about this vaccine. Why would they? How are they going to get away with this? We know that it leaks. We know that it will spread, and you're still there. And there's still other ailments and variables that you come down with. Strokes and heart attacks and whatnot. Yeah. So how could they get away with this unless this is going to become the norm. You're going to need this vaccine in order to stay alive.
No one's going to hold them accountable. You've seen the average person. They don't care.
Look at Lejeune. They're going after, of course, look how long it's taken for them to actually go out. What is it, 50 years later, they're finally going after the dirty, nasty drinking water, if it's even real.
Yeah, and how many people have actually, contacted these attorneys to get something done about it?
Yeah.
Very, very few.
It's an ugly situation. Let's go to the phones here. We got Sarah on the line in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah. Oh, Sarah, going once. Sarah in New Mexico going twice. And she's gone.
Don't worry, she'll call back.
Oh, she will. She will indeed. I don't know. I just wanted to share that. We haven't talked a lot about COVID stuff in recent months, but just a few moments ago during one of the breaks, I was looking at some of the the news stories from today, and there's a story out of Dartmouth College in New Hampshire pimping another booster shot, saying get the new booster shot.
They're talking about the new fall surge that's going to come.
Oh my God!
I mean, even if COVID didn't exist, there'd be some kind of surge, some kind of flu surge. Yeah, exactly. So now they're already pimping. They're already talking about it.
Okay.
Get prepared for it.
Right.
Masks probably might come back.
I don't think so, man. I think Americans are over that. I don't think the public support's going to be there for masks or the social distancing.
I guess it just depends on if they can gin up enough fear again. Because once you get these people scared, they'll do anything they're told to do.
They will, but I mean, they're not scared of COVID anymore.
I don't know about that. I still see people in masks.
I work with someone who works at one of the public schools here in Keene, and their COVID policy right now, their actual COVID policy is, if you test positive, it doesn't matter. You don't have to quarantine. None of your family has to quarantine.
That's a huge change.
You might have to wear a mask.
I know someone who just took 7 days off and got away with it.
Yeah, I have no doubt that if you go to your employer and you ask for the time off, they're going to give it to you. But that's very different from, even the public school systems having a policy of, COVID's just not a big deal anymore. That's just the mentality that people have with it. People aren't afraid of it.
Well, remember the Democrats, I think it was early this year, Biden's campaign, they have like a media company or whatever that did some polling. And the polling found that even Democrats are burned on all this COVID mandates. And so that's why Biden's team turned around and started going in a different direction.
Have they? Because a couple weeks ago, Biden says it was over. COVID's over.
That's what I'm saying.
And then the next day, Van Dam came out and was like,
who the hell's that?
His press secretary.
Okay.
Jean-Claude Van Damme came out and was like, he misspoke, or something to that effect.
Well,
it's still going. We need to wear the masks.
They had to appease the hardcore left that's still afraid, but those people aren't in control. They're a minority.
The bulk of the Democrats are tired of it too, and so that's why
I'll believe it when I see it.
Course.
I'll believe it when I see it.
All right, but then again, once the midterms are over, they might ramp it back up again, right? Once they get themselves back into office. There's more coming up here. You can join the show on Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Inflation, a sidelined labor force, and ever-increasing interest rates. It's the perfect storm for pushing the U.S. economy over the edge. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with BullionMax.com. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live listeners can now order one of BullionMax's most popular products, the Goldback. Now in stock, but supplies are going fast. To get your Goldbacks, go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. Bring up what you want. The number is 603-283-6160. We're going to get into job satisfaction. Conan's got some interesting numbers that he wanted to share here tonight. But with you, it is Ian.
How are you?
And Conan.
Don't forget, you can join us online at freetalklive.com and enjoy the various features that we have there. You can help support the show in a variety of different ways. One thing you can do is you can, if you'd like to see a documentary made about the Crypto 6, there is one that is in production. They're doing fundraising right now. It's an independent production team out of Mexico. They came up here last year and shot some footage and some interviews, and they cut together a 9-minute-long trailer for it. You can go and see that over at, I believe it's Ballad of the Crypto 6 with the number 6.com. Yes, Ballad of the Crypto 6. With the number 6.com. You can become an Indiegogo backer of the movie, and you can earn perks that go from t-shirts to hosting Free Talk Live and dining with some of your favorite hosts. So head over there, watch the trailer, and if you like it, you're excited by it, then please get behind the production over at Ballad of the Crypto 6 with the number 6.com. Conan, what did you want to share tonight about job satisfaction?
Well, this actually came across my my path a couple weeks back, and I just kind of kept the article as an evergreen. We can talk about it really any time because it's an older study. The study's been around for some time. It's a British study. I would really like to see something like this done here in the States, but I did find it interesting because I happen to be at the top of the list, which
really.
Which is, always good to know that you're doing something that is, making you happy, and you're going to probably live a longer, healthier life because of it.
You need a list to tell you this?
It's nice. It's nice to be, does someone come out and says that you're doing the right thing.
So a letter carrier is the number one most.
No. That's way up there or way down there, depending on how you look at it. But no. But I was
going to say I couldn't believe.
I only do that like two 2 days out of the week.
I mean, the term is going postal for a reason, right?
It's actually a lot more satisfying than, say, what Arya does for a living. We're going to get to that.
Being a letter carrier is?
It's way more satisfying than being a cook or a chef.
Well, to each their own, right? I mean,
that's true.
This doesn't account for individual taste or any of that stuff. And sure, I mean, what I do isn't glamorous, but I love the people I do it with.
And that helps, and we've talked about this before. I think probably the most important thing as far as job satisfaction is the people that you work with, and especially your boss. Having good people who, y'all get along, you all listen to the same music, and you all have the same kind of, maybe sometimes the political ideology and the same ideas about how all the customers suck, and you're all in that sheet of music.
My boss and I go to the bar and to music festivals and stuff together. So
very, very helpful. Yeah. Now, if there was someone that you just couldn't stand,
well, there's plenty of those. We fire them
before you know it.
If Arya doesn't like you, you're not going to last long. So just end the story.
So this from the actual BBC.com. Which would you be happier doing? Serving pints or serving God? The Cabinet Office, which is a British governmental department, has been looking at the relationships between different jobs and levels of life satisfaction, and it turns out publicans, which I do believe is a tax collector.
I thought a publican was a bartender in the UK.
It's also someone who runs a counter, but they have barkeep in here already. So I do believe publicans in this sense it's in the Roman sense.
A publican is a public contractor in antiquity. And it is a Roman thing. Yeah,
I think in this case it's a tax collector. By the way, all these job descriptions are British, so we'll find out in a second how they're speaking English, but they're really not. Anyways, publicans, as it turns out, are the unhappiest occupation of all. They are closely followed by brickies, which I think are bricklayers, and debt collectors, which would make sense if publicans and debt collectors are basically the same person.
You're saying these are the most satisfied people?
The unhappiest.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you started at the bottom of the list.
Well, obviously, your job as a debt collector is to hound people who can't afford to pay you.
People hate you.
Exactly.
They hate you.
When I worked for the cable company many years ago, there was a job description. There was basically the guys who went and collected debt from the cable watchers. And what a horrible I was like, I did it like one day. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. I want to be the guy fixing the cable, because those customer loves that guy. They love you. You got cookies for you, and they come on inside. You want to. Here's a beer. I can't drink beer on the job. All right, here, have some cookies. Anyways, it was night and day, the difference in satisfaction level. The happiest workers, the research suggests, are vicars and priests.
Members the hell is a vicar?
Clergy.
A religious person.
Okay.
Members of the clergy enjoy the most satisfying lives, but farmers and fitness instructors are pretty jolly too. Jolly.
Okay. Now, would this be true if clergy and vicars weren't out there,
diddling
having
boys?
Sex with little boys and violating all manner of other religious teachings
so what you're
that
saying,
they're supposed to be following?
If you take the boys away, would they be as happy?
Well, if you take the boys away and you make them actually follow the teachings that they're supposed to be following.
Good question.
Instead of exercising power over others.
And is that part of their satisfaction, is actually being like the lead?
Oh, I'm sure it is. It's just like being a president or whatever. You don't enter the Roman Catholicism clergy unless you want power over others. That's what they offer. Just like running for Congress or president.
And I think this is mostly a Catholic thing. I don't think all clergy are in that boy diddling boat. Maybe they are. I don't know.
Well, the Catholics certainly are.
They absolutely. And it's probably because, can they marry yet? Are they still? Is there still some kind of rule against that?
Ooh, yeah, I don't know if they've changed the celibacy requirement.
Because that's the real problem right there.
The Baptist men like little girls a lot more than they like little boys.
The Baptist ones?
Yeah. And I suspect that's probably true of the American Methodists as well. I don't know. But I know, like the Southern Baptists, it would be, if it was legal, almost every one of them would have a wife that was like 13 years old.
Wow.
And since then, all of them have just become Mormons, right? Baptists aren't for me. The ones that want to, have 13-year-old wives.
You're talking about the LDS cult,
right?
They're like the more extreme Mormons.
Do they have child wives?
Yes,
or
yes, they do.
13-year-old wives.
Yeah, what are they called? Fundamentalists. They're called the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So the FLDS. That's the cult. They live in Utah, and I think some in Arizona and probably Idaho or whatever, but they're like way away from any kind of civilization, and they have
sounds like it.
They have their compounds, and they get rid of the boy babies. They run them out of society, basically.
What? Well, they're competition for the 13-year-old girls,
right? So,
how do they run babies out?
I don't know. They have their ways. They're probably not when they're little babies, but they get rid of them as soon as they possibly can.
So they get the competition out. This is like the male lion eating the cubs.
Yeah, and then they marry their girl children at 12 or something like that. I remember we reported on them years ago on Free Talk Live. They were the feds were going after one of their guys.
And they're still at this? Or has this kind of died out?
I suspect they're still at it.
Holy crap.
I'll dig around, Conan, and see if they're still in the news. Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So these are the more fundy Mormons out there. I don't think this would fly in the normal Mormon church. So more coming up here in moments. The number 603-283-6160. The most satisfied jobs, the least satisfied jobs. Yep. Conan's got a little bit more for us here, and you can share your thoughts as well.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The leaders of 7 major industrialised countries have announced they'll continue supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. The G7 also said Russia would face severe consequences if it used chemical, biological or nuclear weapons. Russian missiles have struck a number of Ukrainian cities this week, killing at least 19 people, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the G7 at a virtual emergency meeting to boost the country's air defence capabilities. Meanwhile, the head of GCHQ, one of the UK's intelligence agencies, says Ukrainian forces are turning the tide in their fight against Russia. Our UK correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
Britain's top spies don't speak in public very often, and when they do, the world listens. In his speech on Tuesday, Sir Jeremy Fleming condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin for his veiled threats about nuclear weapons.
To even be talking about possible use of tactical nuclear weapons is a very dangerous thing to do. And if there really is contemplation about their use, then that would be catastrophic, and there would be serious repercussions from that.
Fleming also said that China's government fears freedom of speech and its own citizens, saying that its actions could represent a huge threat to us all. Extracts of his speech were released ahead of time, and Beijing said the claims had no basis in fact. Giles Gibson, London.
The International Monetary Fund has unveiled its World Economic Outlook for the year ahead, with a stark warning that the worst is yet to come. The IMF, holding its annual meeting in Washington, D.C., says the global economy faces steep challenges, shaped by 3 powerful forces: the war in Ukraine, inflation, and a deceleration of growth in China. The coronation of King Charles III will take place on May 6th next year. Buckingham Palace confirmed the ceremony will take place in Westminster Abbey, with Camilla, the Queen Consort, set to be crowned alongside her husband. Laura Macon-Isherwood reports from London.
The palace says the proceedings, which will take place 8 months after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, will reflect the monarch's role today and look towards the future. It's expected to be a slimmed-down version of the events King Charles's mother experienced, and there may be far fewer guests in attendance too. May the 6th is also the birthday of Prince Harry and Meghan the Duchess of Sussex's son, Archie. It's not clear yet if the family will travel from California to attend. Laura Macon-Isherwood, London.
And the US Treasury Secretary has urged G20 members to do more to help millions of people facing food insecurity. At an inaugural meeting between G20 finance and agricultural ministers, Janet Yellen said Russia's war in Ukraine is the cause of immense human suffering. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
How are you?
And Conan.
Don't forget, you can join us online at freetalklive.com. Enjoy the features there. We have our social media platform at social.freetalklive.com. That's where you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners and some of the hosts of the show, and it gives you more freedom to express yourself than you'll get on some of the big tech mega platforms out there. Social.freetalklive.com. Somehow we went from a discussion of job satisfaction ratings in the UK.
Yeah. And Arya brought up a very good point. Why is the clergy so satisfied with their jobs? And I think you're onto something. I think it has something to do with power.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it has something to do with their appetites.
The whole shtick of religion is power over others.
Yeah.
I mean, people's fear of death has been exploited for thousands of years to establish power over others.
Right?
Yes.
You know, I'm religious.
Organized religion.
And I have a church.
It's organized for a reason.
Wait. Are you religious or are you spiritual? Because religious is like following doctrine and following dogma.
Not necessarily.
I think that it is.
No, that's organized religion.
You can have your own personal religious beliefs. You don't have to have an organization behind it. You don't have to desire control over others. But historically, that is what organized religion has led towards.
Right, that's why it's organized.
Right.
To have that hierarchy in place that allows people to have control over others.
Right. And we brought up the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which I talked about how they went after one of their, wasn't founders, they've been around for a very long time, like the 1800s. But it was a recent quote-unquote prophet who was prosecuted back in like 2005, 2007, somewhere in that range, named Warren Jeffs out in Utah. But, Conan, you were curious if they were still active, so I did a quick look for FLDS Church, and a story out of St. George, Utah, posted within the last month in September. The FBI has conducted several raids in Colorado City, Arizona, involving a sect of the polygamous fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So the crackdown on one of their prophets a decade and a half ago hasn't stopped them. The FBI's office out of Phoenix confirmed they were in Colorado City conducting, quote, court-authorized law enforcement activity. St. George News learned that about 10:45 a.m., the FBI raided the home of local FLDS leader Samuel Bateman. He leads a break-off sect of the FLDS religion in Colorado City. The raid comes nearly 15 years to the day that FLDS leader Warren Jeffs was convicted in a St. George court of being an accomplice to rape. That conviction was later overturned, and Jeffs was subsequently convicted of aggravated sexual assault on a minor in Texas, where he remains in prison. He's on a life plus X years sentence.
For sexual assault of a minor? I mean, that's horrific, no doubt. But a life sentence for that?
I suspect it was more than one charge, but I don't have all the details in front of me. In fact, there's another story from less than 2 weeks ago that says he's being prosecuted again.
And I hate
while still in prison.
I hate to be that person, but it sounds like the act may have been consensual on both parties. If the rape conviction was overturned, but they got a conviction on a lesser charge, I don't know.
It's hard to say. We don't know the details in the case, but according to media reports, Bateman, the guy they're going after now, came out shortly after Jeffs was arrested in 2006 and claimed that he was the one to receive revelation for the FLDS religion. So the one went down, and another one popped up right in his place. Shortly after, Seth Jeffs claimed he would be revealing revelation from his brother while he was imprisoned near Texas. In the last month, Jeffs released new edicts from prison seen by St. George News. They give authority to one of his sons, Helaman Jeffs, to lead and perform polygamous marriages. This includes an edict telling all women to quit jobs in the workplace and return to being housewives, as well as gathering the children back into the church. Multiple witnesses in Colorado City have confirmed that the FBI was at 2 houses in this particular case. So they are still out there. They are still active. In fact, Bonnie came into the studio. She lived for some number of years in the desert, basically in Utah, living out in the mountains on an actual military base. So apparently there's an FLDS cult located near this particular military base, and she said that they had that there was like a school at the cult that had a team or something like that was playing against their school, and she said the kids were really weird.
Why is this?
But there were, I mean, do you need me to tell you more? The FLDS kids are weird? You don't think that's weird? This is like maximum weird, Conan. What do you mean, why are they weird?
Yeah, but the Quakers are kind of the same way. They're not weird.
The Quakers aren't molesting
the Quakers
children.
Don't have special magic underwear and believe that Jesus lives on another planet or whatever like the Mormons do.
The Quakers aren't living out in the middle of nowhere, barely talking to anyone, and allegedly touching their kids inappropriately, right? Like those aren't allegations being leveled at the Quakers that I've ever heard.
I've never heard that leveled at Quakers, for sure.
So, but the one thing Bonnie did say was that apparently there are boys on the soccer team or whatever, football or whatever it was that was being played. So it may be that they don't run the boys out until they're 18. I think that might have been the case. It's a detail I didn't recall from the story, but they definitely don't want the boys.
How else did you get rid of kids? You don't just...
I don't know. You could adopt them out or something.
Leave them up on a hillside.
They may keep some number of kids as well. Like maybe 1 out of every 10 boys gets to stay.
Obviously, the son of the founder or whatever, the son of the prophet is going to get to stay. So the connected ones will have to continue the cult.
Are there more females in these cults than there are dudes?
Definitely.
Well, they get rid of the males.
Yeah, it's a polygamy cult. These guys have multiple wives. Like they've had, I believe the allegations are dozens of wives.
Which is fine. I mean,
sired dozens of children.
That's the question we have right now is whether this is a consensual group.
Well, that gets into an interesting question, Conan. I mean, consent is a strange thing. If you are raised in a cult out in the middle of nowhere and you barely know that the rest of the world exists, imagine like Pleasantville, except really creepy, right? Like Pleasantville was weird enough.
Pleasantville was creepy.
Yeah, but like sex creepy, right? Like imagine that happening, and that's where you were born and raised, and you're living in a place where a male has a dozen wives with dozens of children, and the boys are looked down upon. I mean, you're going to think this is normal. You're going to think this is completely normal, and these people are quote-unquote consenting because they've probably been told that Jesus will send them to hell if they don't do what the prophet says. Look, I'm speculating. I don't know what
you could say the same thing about any community, any society. I mean, look at all the people who were consenting of the vaccine jab.
But this is different. These people are being groomed, presumably, their entire lives from the time they're 3 or 4 years old. They're being groomed and told, hey, one day, when you hit puberty or whatever, you're going to marry a man and he's going to have sex with you and you're going to have children. And this
that's
is great.
What God wants.
Yes, you'll be serving God by doing this. Telling someone that from the age of 2 years old to the age of 13, that's going to screw them up.
And if you try to run away, you're going to hell.
Well, I'm not seeing that any worse than our own public indoctrination camps, baby prisons that are teaching kids all kinds of nonsense, grooming them as well.
I get you on that.
Grooming isn't just sexual in nature. It could be any ideology.
I get what you're saying there, and that's why, Conan, even though I might consider it to be wrong for those people to be doing that, I'm not going to interfere with it. It's like, that's your life, that's your belief, you're doing it over there, okay, whatever. That said, I also support the idea of being able to rescue those kids from that situation. And there have been people who have been in this particular cult who managed to escape, who have now dedicated their lives to trying to help these kids get out from this situation. I think that's fine.
There was an incident in this country not too long ago, Waco, where that was their part of their argument, that these people have kids and guns. And they have kids, and so we need to go rescue the kids. And they burn the place. And they burn the place down. Yeah, they should.
I think they should be left alone. I don't think that a war needs to be started over this.
Yeah, I think the best we can really hope for is to hope that karma exists and that karma will take care of it. I don't know what else to do.
Or help them escape. Like there are programs to
The best thing that we ever did for the USSR, rock and roll, media, Hollywood, and just being over here doing our thing. Do your thing. We didn't need nukes. We could have just had who was Knight Rider? He saved us.
Hasselhoff. Was that Hasselhoff? More coming up. Free Talk Live. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live moments remain here. Enough time for you if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about job satisfaction. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
You can join us online over at freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that are waiting for you there. Once again, that's freetalklive.com. We are going to continue with, of course, your calls. You can bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. Let's go to the phones here, and to the phone we got Sarah on the line in New Mexico. Sarah, we would ask you about your job satisfaction, but you've never had one basically since you were like 17, right?
Did she work as a cashier or something for like a couple of months?
I kind of worked part-time until I clocked up in the mental hospital. Ever since then, I've never been the same, so I never had any kind of full-time job.
And that was like when you were 17, wasn't it? Didn't you go to the mental hospital in your teens?
Yeah, when I was 18.
Right. And you now, how old are you? 60?
I'm 53.
53.
Why did you go to the mental hospital, Sarah?
Bipolar, probably.
Bipolar.
Oh, God.
One more time, Sarah.
That's when the thing is that's when the adult hormones get released when you're 18. So that's when you can have.
Oh, they wait until you're 18 before the adult hormones come out? I didn't know that.
That's right.
You got people. You have people with serious chemical imbalances, schizophrenics and whatnot, and you're just a little bipolar.
She can't work.
Are you a mental health professional?
How are they?
You have a degree, so you're not. That's how you are not knowledgeable about your ridiculing mental illness, and you have.
I have relations who claim they're bipolar, and it's usually because they just drink too much or they're taking too much drugs and doing this and that.
Sarah, you've been kicking this horse for 35 years. For 35 years, you've used this excuse to keep yourself from working.
Hey, you know what? I'm bipolar. I wake up, I'm moody. I'm moody in the morning. I am a grouch. I'm a grouch in the morning because I have chemical imbalance and I drink too much. I'm also bipolar. I don't want to hear it.
You're also working constantly. You're one of the most productive people that I know, probably.
I'm always doing something. I wouldn't claim that.
Well, I do work by getting the vote out. Like one place the vote right now.
So you're a net drag on society in multiple ways. What do you think good? What good do you think voting does, Sarah? Why do you want people to vote?
Well, I've kind of been wondering about it. I've always been speculating as all of this effort really what matter. But the thing is that ever since I've been in New Mexico, we've been breaking records with voter turnout, and just because of that,
what good has it done? You all you do is you call in about how New Mexico is dangerous and that people are on the roads are insane and that there's all these problems in New Mexico.
But here's the thing, that we prove that to the rest of the world that we've been a blue state all along. If we get all these people to the polling
New
place,
Mexico is a loser state. They're constantly, there's one of the biggest governments out there. There's not very many people that live there. And there's a ton of welfare in New Mexico. It is known for being just incredibly corrupt. Like, New Mexico is one of the least interesting states out there for a variety of different reasons.
But you know what? At least I got the vote out. We've been breaking.
But it hasn't done anything. What has it changed?
I had a lot to do with it.
Well, you can pat yourself on the back, Sarah, but life hasn't gotten better there, has it?
Well, sometimes I speculate what really has improved.
You
but all I know
complain
is
about
I made
people
a
smoking
difference.
at the bus stop. You complain about all these things that you don't like, and you think people voting is going to change it? It hasn't.
Well, the thing is that I'm not changing. I don't know what the result of all this thing is. Is that I know that I got people out to vote, and we proved that.
Yes, but Sarah, you're missing the follow-up question. What does it matter that you got people out there to vote? What did it accomplish? What did it do?
Well, we had a blue tidal wave here. Blue wave. Blue tidal wave.
Okay, what did the blue tidal wave do? What was the effect of all of this? What change did it have?
Did you get more EBT out of it, Sarah?
Actually, I think I have.
There you go. More blue tidal wave means more money being stolen from the productive and going into her hands to pay her to sit at home, call talk radio stations all day. That's what she does.
Sarah, if she was just to go out and get a job and work in a team with some other human beings,
right? Maybe she'd have
go
some
out and
satisfaction.
get her hands dirty. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe she'd be able to point to something that she actually accomplished in life.
Oh, that's one of the most satisfying things. Especially, I don't know if you guys ever worked like construction teams, and you're just driving around town with them, like, oh. Stop! I built that one.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's that roof right there. That's me. I did that, and you can tell. I mean, it's just
Thanks,
it is satisfying to be able to stop what you're doing when you're done, of course, and just to stand back and look back on what you have accomplished. And I think a big part of our problem in this country is that you just have too many people in sales and people on the phone dealing with people all over the place, and they're not actually building anything. They're not actually creating anything. They're just
you got to have salespeople.
But there's too many that all they do is sales. Everything else is being built in other countries on this planet. We're not actually building anything anymore. And I think, according to this list, I'm number 8 on this as a farmer, and I do work in my garden more than I do anything else.
Is that really a job, though? I mean, you're not working for someone else. You don't have customers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all right. I'm not buying food at the store because it's all there in my backyard.
No, I'm not saying you're not satisfied. I'm with you.
But
man.
These
are people with jobs.
But this is a job. And this is. I'm sure they're not. I'm sure these aren't just most people who work in their backyard in the garden are just growing a couple tomato plants. It's a hobby. They're not doing what I'm doing. I'm growing all of my food in the backyard, and it's not just garden. It's chickens and rabbits.
When you have someone to answer to, right? Are they talking about entrepreneurs
most
here?
Most farmers are entrepreneurs, just running. Basically, most of them are family businesses. They're just, or it's just one guy and his wife.
Look, I'm not denying that they're satisfied. I'm just saying what you're doing isn't really a job. Like you're not working for somebody else. You're working for yourself. You don't have clients that are coming and buying your melons or
monetarily, it is a job.
Yeah.
When you consider how much money that I am saving, it's a job. When you consider how many hours that I'm out there,
it's work.
It's a job.
I don't know if it's a job. I don't know. Well, let's not split the hairs.
You want to go?
Yeah,
you want to do the
list.
least satisfied or the most satisfied?
What do you think?
Top
Aria?
10.
I have no preference.
All right.
All right. Number 1, most satisfied. The clergy.
Okay.
Well, for whatever reason. By the way, I actually have their incomes too, because there's no time for it. All right. Number 2,
This is in the UK anyway.
Chief executives and senior officials.
That's surprising.
Yeah, but they make a lot of money.
Okay.
Number 3, managers and proprietors in agriculture and horticulture.
So there's a theme with all of these, which is just power over others.
How does a farmer have power over us unless they could provide the food? They supply the food.
Manager would.
Number 4, company secretaries. That's odd to me.
That's strange.
Well, they control the CEO to an extent.
Maybe. And maybe they're doing a little something on the side, too. Monica Lewinsky. Number 5, quality assurance and regulatory professionals. Number 6, healthcare practice managers. Number 7, medical practitioners.
Don't healthcare practice managers just fill out insurance forms all day?
I don't know, and they only make 31 on average.
All right, what was 6?
Number 7 is medical practitioners. They make good money. Okay. Number 8, farmers. Number 9, hotel and accommodation managers and proprietors. Number 10, skilled metal, electrical, and electronic trade supervisors. A lot of these are supervisors, it looks like.
I'm surprised that hotel managers are on that list. I mean, imagine dealing with the angry customers about all the stupid crap that can go wrong with a hotel room. That seems like it would be an awful.
All right, the least satisfied, number 10. starting from number
We start from the bottom?
264.
This is the lowest?
Going to the lowest.
Going to the lowest. Okay, go ahead.
Ambulance staff.
It's a rough one, I'm sure.
Yeah. Number 2, plastics process operatives.
A factory worker.
Yeah, some kind of an assembly line guy probably. Number 3, bar staff.
Wow. Okay.
That makes sense to me. Care escorts. I don't know what that is. Is that a prostitute?
No.
Sports and leisure assistants. I don't know what that is
Could
either.
also be a prostitute.
It could.
I don't know.
Hey, this one makes sense to me. Telephone salespersons.
Yeah, they get hung up on all the time.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yep. Floorers and wall tilers.
Huh.
Industrial cleaning process occupations. Debt, rent, and other cash collectors. Makes perfect sense to me.
They really should have condensed this down to like smaller categories.
Is that the lowest
jobs?
one?
And then
Debt collector?
number 2 more low ones. Elementary construction occupations.
Huh.
And the one at the top of the list, the lowest on the list, publicans and managers of licensed premises. Whatever the hell that is.
So
British.
Barkeep. Sounds like a barkeep or something.
It sounds like tax collectors to me.
Out of time for tonight. You can join us tomorrow. Online in the meantime, freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next,